I need time to prepare. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I need time to I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I need time to prepare. I need time. I need time. I need time to prepare. I need time to prepare that. I need time to I need time to I need time. I need time. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I need time. I need time. I need time.
Alrighty guys, I'm gonna explain my build. I've updated from the last time I've done this. So I'm gonna go over the talents, gear, Paragon, vampire powers. So let's start off with the gear. Run disobedience. This gives you the armor that you need to survive tier 100s. The armor cap is 13,201. This gives you 80% damage reduction against 154 leveled enemies, which is tier 100. I'm not sure what the new leveled enemies are going to be in December, which they announced in BlizzCon. But I'm assuming they're going to be pretty tanky also, or be pretty high levels also. So very important to have armor. or in as much armor as you can, so you don't get one shot. Now, if you're just doing bossing and just doing easy content, just want to do more damage, you can run Godslayers. Godslayers just does significantly more damage, but do note that if you don't have disobedience and the armor to survive, you're just gonna fall over. The next is chest. So Soulbrand is my other option that I've been running with. Soulbrand is your tanking chest, and Raiment is your DPS chest. That's how I differentiate the two. You could run Raiment right now, tier 100s, pretty easily, but I'm starting to like Soulbrand a little bit more, just because it's just tanky, and you can just make mistakes and get away with it. You can also spam your potions, and you can get a barrier that gives you a lot more damage reduction, similar to Temerity, but Soulbrand is just a whole lot stronger. The other benefit about Soulbrand is that it gives you Lucky Hit, and I'll explain Lucky Hit in a little bit, but we want as much Lucky Hit as possible, but we also don't want to sacrifice a lot of gear pieces, so just get it whenever you can, but don't make your way out of it. So just to recap, Soulbrand for tanky, Raiment for DPS, Godslayer for DPS, Disobedience for tanky. Okay, gloves. So gloves, I run Frozen Tundra. This is because your ice spikes gain at a 50% increased radius. This allows you to hit more targets, and you do overall more damage. The other part about it is Deep Freeze gives you ice spikes, which is nice, but we don't really use Deep Freeze a whole lot. We only use Deep Freeze as a reset for our cooldowns and to get mana back. For our gloves, we want attack speed, crit chance, lucky hit, and intel. Okay, for the pants, we're using Tibalt's Will. This gives us our mana back whenever we use an ability that gets us unstoppable, which is our teleport and flame shield and deep freeze. So whenever we use these abilities, we get 50 mana back, but we also get more mana if we have resource generating aspects or talents. I'm not sure how to describe this. Affixes? Yeah. You also get a huge damage multiplier whenever you're unstoppable. So whenever we teleport, whenever we have flame shield, and whenever we use deep freeze, we're gonna have unstoppable, and we'll do more damage during that window. The other benefit of Tibalt is that it gives you potion capacity, which is nice. It goes hand in hand with Soulbrand, so it's where we spamming potions. You also get more damage reduction, which is pretty good affixes on this. Asus, very good boots. This gives you a lot of crit chance and move speed, and we need both. Currently, our crit chance is at 34%, and our move speed is at 125%. But when we press evade, we are move speed capped. But we have 200% move speed. But not only when we're move speed capped, our crit chance also goes up because of the Asus passive, how it works. The more move speed you have, the more crit chance you have. So with 200% move speed, our crit chance goes up to 56%, which is pretty good. It's more than enough for our Blizzard build. You could probably go for more, and I think when you kill an enemy, you also get more crit chance. Our next is the weapon. We can use a dagger or a wand I prefer using a dagger because of the plus it gives you damage to close. A wand gives you lucky hit chance. I just prefer to do more damage, so I pick damage to close. We have conceded, we do more damage while we have a barrier. We're always running with an extra barrier active. The stats for these, they're not too bad. They could be better. But overall, these are pretty good ideal stats to have. Our offhand, we have Stormwell, so we do more damage while we have a barrier and increased damage while they're vulnerable. The stats for these are pretty ideal. You want to have resource generating, cooldown, lucky hit that generates resource, and mana cost reduction. Unfortunately, I don't have mana cost reduction, but that is something that you're looking for. X-Falls Ring, this does a lot of damage whenever we have our Blizzard and Firebolt. And the combination of both allows us to proc pretty frequently, especially with Firebolt. So, as I was saying earlier, lucky hit chance. You want lucky hit because the more you have, the more lucky hit Firebolt will have, and Blizzard. But Firebolt is our main way of generating more lucky hits, which procs X-Falls. And X-Falls does a pretty good amount of damage. Previously, I was using Blue Rose, but I found out that using a multiplier ring is just more damage than Blue Rose. Blue Rose only does a flat amount and it can crit, but having a multiplier just does significantly more damage, so I use Control. This upcoming Tuesday, there's going to be a new ring that drops from Varshan, and it's called a Tal Rasha ring. And that gives you a multiplier for each element that you apply on an enemy. And that's going to replace this ring once I obtain that one. How Tal Rasha works is whenever you apply a unique elemental damage on an enemy, you have a bigger multiplier. So we have cold, we have lightning, we have fire. So that gives us the three stacks of elemental damage for Tal Rasha. You could also apply a fourth one if you get on your vampire power, and you can apply poison. And that would also give you another multiplier. But I don't think I'm going to opt for that because I run a different setup for my vampire powers, but I'll get to that later. Lastly, we have Glacial. This is our way of doing damage. So stats for these, kind of looking for something like this. Firing Blaze, all defensives, damage after killing an elite, damage reduction. You could also get move speed, mana cost reduction, cooldown reduction. You can get ranks to Warfrost. You can get ranks to Devouring. Ranks to Mastery is okay, but ideally you want something like this. Just to mention about the stats for your ring, ideally you would want crit chance, resource generating is a good one, max life, and damage to close. Okay, so that is it for gear. Okay, vampire powers. So I'm using Call Familiar and Feed the Coven. The reason for this is because whenever we use a mastery skill, which is Blizzard, we have a chance to cause a bat, and the bat will spawn and get stunned. Has a 30% chance to stun, which is nice. But that is not the reason why we have this. The reason we have this is just to summon the bat. But once you summon it, the reason we have it is because of this. They have a chance to restore 10 primary resource and increase your damage by 10% multiplicative for 4 seconds. Since we're always casting Blizzard, we cast Bats. The Bats have a chance to give us our resource back. And we have a multiplier damage of 10% more damage whenever they hit an enemy. So that's how we run this setup. So just more resource, more damage. You could argue for Ravenous, but I find that you're always moving, and I'm not sure if it's better to just keep casting more blizzards, but I don't think the attack speed is noticeable unless you're standing still and constantly casting blizzards. But attack speed doesn't change the tick rate on blizzards. It doesn't make the damage faster. It just allows you to cast more in a shorter amount of time. But I'm not sure. I would have to test this a little bit more. But I do like the synergy of this. It gives you more survivability of being able to stun mobs from off screen. It gives you a resource generating, and it gives you a 10% damage multiplier. So that's why I think this setup is a little bit better. With the rest of the powers, it's kind of your standard setup. Run a Curse Touch with Prey on the Weak. The combination of this allows you to make enemies vulnerable, and you do more damage against vulnerable enemies. The last one is Domination. You do increased damage to enemies who are CC'd. We're able to freeze enemies pretty frequently, so we have a high uptime on this. And we also have an Execute against enemies that are not elite, so that's always nice for speedrunning. Okay, now we're going to go over talents. So you have 2 points in Fireball. And we have Frozen Orb. Frozen Orb is used for chill, and we can freeze enemies quicker. The explosions that gives us mana back is also pretty nice, but it's not necessary. If you want to run a hardcore setup, you could take points from this, distribute it to Potent Warding, and align the elements, and then change the enchant from Frozen Orb to Flame Shield. Otherwise, I think Frozen Orb is just quality of life, making enemies frozen faster. Next, we have Flame Shield, Teleport, Ice Armor, and Frost Nova. Whenever we teleport, we have more damage reduction, which is nice. That's why we always want to teleport as often as we can. Ice Armor allows us to generate more mana back. And then the Frost Nova is pretty nice. Whenever we get into a group of elites, we just want to freeze them instantly. And we don't want to wait for a blizzard to tick, so we can just teleport in and Frost Nova, kill them quicker. Down here, we have 3 points to Precision Magic. This gives us more lucky hit chance, which I explained earlier. The reason why is to proc our X-Falls more frequently through the use of Firebolt and our Blizzard. Over here, we have points to Defense, which is pretty nice. I started to put points into Cold Front, mostly because I wanted to freeze enemies faster. However, when I found out that you cannot stagger bosses faster, that was quite disappointing. But I think it's still beneficial to have this, because being able to freeze enemies even a second faster will help your survivability up quite a bit. And being able to make enemies frozen faster, you just do more, you could do more damage quicker. So that's why I have this. But this doesn't stagger bosses faster, unfortunately. We only put 1 point into Blizzard because Blizzard in of itself doesn't do enough damage. It doesn't crit, and it just doesn't really scale that well. The only reason we have points into Blizzard is to go up here, increase the duration, and that is the main reason. Our main damage just comes from Glacial. So Blizzard in of itself doesn't just do a whole lot, unfortunately. Even with Glowing Veins, it still doesn't do enough damage, unfortunately. And that's just really terrible. Next, we have points to Devouring Blaze. We have more critical strike damage multiplier against burning enemies. We're able to make enemies burn through Firebolt. Okay, down here we have more passives for damage. And then we have Deep Freeze. We want to get this one because it resets our cooldowns. So that is the reason we run Deep Freeze. Lastly, we have Avalanche. So just wanted to demonstrate the gameplay loop. So when you're running around, you want to keep your evade off cooldown. So you have your move speed capped, and then you have an increased crit chance. So you always want to keep evading, so you have that going. Next, you want to press Blizzard until you're out of mana. Once you're out of mana, keep your ice armor up so you get more mana back from your talent resource generating. And then once you're out of mana, you want to press teleport so you get more mana back through the use of Tybalt's Will. And then once you're out of mana again, you can press Flame Shield, you get more mana back. And then let's just say you're out of everything. Press Deep Freeze, and then cancel it. And then you'll get your cooldowns back up.
I need time to
And that is it. So now we're going to go over Paragon. So I made some changes with my Paragon board compared to the last one that I've done. So with this setup, I'm doing a little bit more damage. So for the first board, I have Elementalist. The second one, on the Icefall Paragon board, I'm using Winter. Winter gives you a more multiplicative damage whenever you chill or freeze an enemy, up to 15%. Previously, I was using Territorial. Territorial gives you more damage reduction against close enemies. Winter just gives you more damage. So it is a choice. If you want to be more tanky, you run Territorial. If you want to do more damage, run Winter. So far, the content of this game has been pretty easy, so I don't need to be more tanky. I could just do more damage. But I'm not sure what the new content's going to be this upcoming month. It might be pretty difficult. If it is, I could swap to Territorial and I'll be more tanky. And I don't have to swap my whole board around. I could just swap a glyph and it'll be pretty easy. The second board is Enchantment Master. I run Flame Feeder. The reason for this is you do 10% increased multiplicative damage against burning enemies. You also do a flat amount of damage to burning enemies. We make enemies burning through the use of Firebolt enchantment. Okay, the next board is the Burning Instinct board. In this one, we are running Destruction, more multiplicative damage and we have a flat amount of crit damage as well. Okay, the board after that, we have Frigid Fate, where we have more multipliers, and we are using Exploit. Previously, I was using Stalagmite, but now I'm using Exploit. The reason for this is Exploit has a 10% multiplier. Stalagmite does not. So Stalagmite only does 10% crit chance and gives me increased damage only to the ice spikes. So only my glacial is going to benefit from Stalagmite. Whereas Exploit is going to benefit from all my damage that I do, which includes X-Falls. And X-Falls is also a good portion of my damage. The last board, I'm using Ceaseless Conduit board, and I have control. So whenever we chill or freeze an enemy, we do more damage. We can freeze enemies pretty often, and we can stun enemies if we're using Reliant. Reliant will teleport, will stun enemies. But also having chilled and frozen enemies, or even staggered bosses. This will come into effect. When the boss is staggered, you do more damage. So this is what I have going so far. The benefits of this build is that it's a different playstyle than Ball Lightning. It's not as OP as Ball Lightning, but it's also not bugged like Ball Lightning, so it's not prone to being nerfed. So this build can work in the next season, even without these vampire powers. The vampire powers do help, especially the vulnerable. Helps quite a bit. But I think that this build can survive another season. But we'll see. This build does excel at killing monsters really fast, but for bosses it kind of struggles a little bit, especially if they move around quite a lot. So that is probably the main downside of this build. But for speedrunning and just getting to the end, I think this build does pretty good as well. That is all I have. Thanks for watching. Bye.